Hi y'all, it's day 11 and I can't really do my little hand signals anymore. I need a third hand for these higher numbers. But I can't believe that I only have 7 full days of treatment left. I mean, I have all of next week because we have Sundays off, but as far as days of treatment, only 7 remain. So it's good and bad. I mean, the good of it is I'm very excited about what I'm getting out of this program, and I'm excited to take what I'm learning and all of the treatments and the effects of those and pair that with what I'm doing back home. And hopefully that just creates an opportunity for me to take back my life that's been very displaced over the last 8, almost 9 months. So that's very exciting, and I really look forward to that. But it is a little intimidating too to just think about leaving this perfect little bubble of care, where everything is being monitored, my mental health, physical health, my diet, I have a driver. I mean, I'm gonna give that up. But it's very comforting being here and just being attended to in the way that I am, and knowing that nothing is being forgotten or missed. So anyway, but it's all good, and I still have 7 days left. So excited about that. Had a good day today. I did do a new immunotherapy treatment. I don't know a lot about it, but I met with my oncologist here, and he's my new favorite of everyone. Every medical professional I've had, this man is so caring. You can just see, how you can look in someone's eyes and you can just see what a caring, genuine person they are. That's this man, and he makes sure that my mom understands what's going on, that I'm taken care of. He checks on me. He's like, I'm all, when do I see you again? He's like, you'll see me every day. You see me every day till you leave. I'm like, whoa. Just the patient-doctor model of care in Mexico, it's amazing and so different. And I know there's all the reasons, I know them all, about why it's different in the US, but it doesn't change the fact that you just have a different experience here. And it just makes you feel like you're not a number, that you matter, that they're really actually working on your case and doing everything possible for you as an individual, not just like, oh, well, you have this disease and this is what we do for everybody with your disease. It's like, no, you have this disease and things about you are completely different than every other person that has this disease. And that's all taken into consideration, and it's just so refreshing. So anyway, kudos to the doctors here. And I don't think it's just the clinic that I chose. I mean, I've read online and then talked to other people, so many other people that have done treatment in Mexico, and they all say the same thing. So anyway, I think it's a common thing. But that's kind of all that I had to report about treatment in the clinic and my experience here. But I had mentioned that I wanted to do a piece on my diagnosis, and the reason is because I just feel like people might benefit from knowing how I ever knew that I had cancer and how that all unfolded. And so I'm going to try to piece it together as best I can. I will preface this by saying, this may be a little personal or maybe too much information for some people. If it is, just skip this episode. And that's fine. But my point in sharing all of this is to bring awareness and to help anybody who might face the same situation, or maybe somebody could hear what I'm saying and be like, oh, I should get that checked out, and it would make a difference. So my willingness to share isn't necessarily what I'm comfortable with. I'm normally more reserved and kind of keep things to my little tight circle, but in this instance, I really don't care. I don't care about the personal information that I'm about to share, because it is what it is, and I think it could help someone. So anyway, here's my story as best I can remember. And I think, our bodies, our minds have a way of protecting us from certain things when things get really bad. And so I think we don't always remember every single detail as kind of a defense mechanism. And so I did have to consult with my friend Jen and my sister on some of these details because I couldn't really remember every single thing and how it played out. But to the best of our memories, this is kind of what happened. So when I looked back and, I was trying to think, okay, what would be my earliest memory that something could have been wrong? And I think it goes pretty far back. I would say maybe 10 years ago, or I don't know, 8 to 10 years ago, maybe. I just always had stomach issues. And I just mean like, all of a sudden there'd be a new food that I couldn't eat, or, I would have bloating or upset stomach, and it would just be like, okay, now I can't eat avocados, and that was it, like done, no more avocados. Like they always would hurt my stomach. And I think that could have been an early sign that something was wrong. I'm not saying I had cancer 8 years ago, but I think that was kind of the beginning of just something being off in my body. Also, another thing that happened maybe 7 or 8 years ago is one time I had swelling around my neck, and it wasn't lymph nodes, it was just like water retention or fluid retention. And I learned today that is because I've had that since I've been here, and I learned today that can be because of tumor activity. And so when back like 7 years ago when I had that, I had it checked out, and they were like, oh, you're fine, you're young, everything looks good, blood work looks good. But it could have been, something that had to do with tumor activity at that time, or it could have been who knows what. But then they were like, let's just watch it, and nothing ever came of it. But that's all I can remember from long ago. But then in the most recent past, over the last year, I'll start with like 2 years ago, when my life kind of took a turn for the worse, starting with one of my best friends dying by suicide. And then that just kind of set this spiral of events in motion. Maybe like 7 or 8 months later, my marriage fell apart, and I became very physically ill, and that I wasn't taking good care of myself, and self-care and that whole thing is a discussion for another day that I really want to have, because I do believe that self-care after traumatic events is so important to what happens to us in the long run, but that's for another day. But because of what was going on in my life, I feel like I didn't pick up on certain things, or I just blamed everything on my divorce or my depression because of losing my friend, or, and it's just like everything that was going on, I just said, well, of course I don't feel good. Look what I'm going through, and it actually was obviously more than that. But had two like kind of odd symptoms that now in hindsight I'm like, well, there was something. So one, this is so weird. So I used to, I would have these cravings to eat ice. And okay, I lived in Teton Valley, Idaho in the middle of winter. There's no reason I should be craving ice, okay? But I would crave it so much that I would leave my work and I would drive to the convenience store and I'd buy like this giant tumbler of ice, and I would sit in my office and eat this ice. And then when it was done, I'd be so bummed and I'd want to go get more. So I'd go get more. And I remember thinking how weird that was, because it was a new thing. I didn't like ice. I mean, who wants to chew ice? Well, anyway, I Googled it, and I know Google University, stay away from it, but we all do it. And so I Googled it, and that was the one thing. It was like, it can be a sign of severe anemia. Okay, so I was like, I wonder if I'm anemic, but I didn't do anything about it. And then another sign was, okay, so I've always been allergic to wool, and I but I could always get away with wearing wool sweaters if I wore something underneath, like a tank top or, t-shirt. And all of a sudden, like, I was itching so bad that, I could not have anything touch my skin, especially if it were wool or had any kind of animal, anything in it. But I was just itching like crazy. And so I remember, like, one day I called up my friend Jen and I'm like, look, I got to get rid of these wool sweaters. Like, they're really nice and they're beautiful and they're tempting to put on because it's cold and I want to look cute, but I got to get rid of these things. I can't stand the itching. So I took them to the dry cleaners and I dry cleaned them all, and I gave her all my sweaters, and she scored. She got like 10 sweaters, I bet, but she deserves it. But that's how bad I was itching, and I thought these silly little things would fix this, and it's like, no, something else is going on. And so later I learned, after I was diagnosed, that when something's up with your liver, you can have severe itching. So I ended up finding out that I was, in fact, really anemic. And I went to the doctor. I was having some female issues, and they did blood work, and they said, you are severely anemic. I remember my one doctor in Jackson was like, are you trying to kill yourself? And I was like, well, that's a weird thing for a doctor to say. But she said that my numbers were some of the lowest she's ever seen. So they had me do iron infusions, and I did 2 of them. They had me start taking blood builders and iron pills and eating, dark leafy greens, and my iron did increase, and but I was still really anemic. And so later they thought, well, maybe you should have a hysterectomy, and that would fix a lot of these issues that are going on, and then you don't have to deal with all that, and you'll feel so much better. It'll be the best thing. And so I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have to have a hysterectomy, and I just went through all this crazy stuff in my life. How is this going to slow me down? I'm ready to start my new life, and how long am I going to be out of work? How long am I going to, be sick? And I just want to take control of my new life. And I thought, oh my gosh, this surgery is going to just, slow me down a month. And so, but the surgery was planned. And then I remember staying at a friend's house. My 2 closest friends stayed at their house for the weekend. We had a great weekend, and I woke up Sunday and I had this terrible pain. Well, now I know it was in my liver, but right under my right rib cage, and it wouldn't go away. And so I thought it was like indigestion. I didn't know, so I was taking all these Tums and I don't know what all I was doing, and then sleeping a lot, and then still wouldn't go away. And so I went to the doctor, and my doctor said, all signs point to the fact that it's probably your gallbladder. It's affected by when you eat. It's this dull, constant pain. It's in the right location. I think you're gonna have to have your gallbladder removed. And I was like, what? Now I have to have my gallbladder removed and a hysterectomy? And she was like, oh, but maybe we can do them at the same time. Maybe we won't. We might have to have 2 surgeries. So then, same thoughts. Well, how long is this going to take? When am I going to be better, And it's just so funny to me now. I thought, whoa, a month of my life is going to be interrupted. Little did I know. But anyway, so she said, well, you need to get an ultrasound. And that will determine if it is in fact the gallbladder, and then we'll schedule the surgery, and then you'll get this stuff done, and you'll be on to feeling great and get your life back. So I went and had the ultrasound, and that's where they discovered spots on my liver. And I was home, and I got the phone call from my doctor, and she said, and I remember she's been my doctor for years, so I really knew her well, and she was like, I just really hate to do this over the phone, but we're in a time crunch now. And I said, time crunch? What's the big deal? I'm just getting my gallbladder removed, and hysterectomy. I mean, what's the rush, you know? And she said, well, there's something going on with your liver. You've got spots all over it. And, you know, it could be one or two things. She's like, it could be, best case scenario, it could be what equates to like birthmarks, basically. It's the same, I don't know what the, you know, technical name is for it, but basically it's like having birthmarks on an organ, or which would be almost always benign and no big deal. And I don't know how they treat that, but, you know, or if they do. But it could be that, or it could be that you have cancer. And she was like, and then, you know, we'd have to be making treatment decisions and we would need to act very quickly. And then she starts crying. And so I'm like, so I start crying, or maybe I cried first, who knows? But we're both on the phone crying, and I'm shocked, and I just blindsided, completely blindsided. I mean, never in a million years did I ever think that the possibility of cancer was even on the table, you know? And so she said the next thing I had to do to determine if it was worst or best case scenario was to get an MRI. And I was in so much pain that I just couldn't imagine laying down. You know, you have to lay down, I don't know how long, and I just couldn't, I could barely lay down on my own, you know. And at this point I was having friends stay with me and help me like in and out of bed, you know, and because of this pain. And so I just could not, I didn't know how I was going to do this test. So she said, okay, then what you should do is go to the emergency room and they can do a CT scan, and it's very fast. And then you'll get the results that day, and it won't tell us everything, but it'll tell us if it's cancer or if it's the other. And so I called my friend Jen, the one with the sweaters, and I said, I need to go to the emergency room. And she was like, I'll be right there. And this is where it's a little vague. I know she took me, and I know I gave one of my dogs to her and my other dog to my friends, Riley and Kelly, and, you know, we went to the emergency room. And we were literally there for like 7 hours. And she and I slept a lot, and she sat there and texted all my friends and family and kept everyone in the loop, and we just waited for the results. And what seemed like an eternity, I vividly remember my doctor coming in and sitting down next to me and saying, Holly, you have cancer, and it appears to be in your colon and has moved to your liver. And the tumors on your liver are very large. And I remember Jen grabbing my hand, and this is where it gets hard. That's all I remember. I mean, I remember her asking me if I took a lot of Advil, and I know and have heard, you know, that if the Advil can be very bad for you. So, but I don't feel like I overtook Advil. I mean, I took it sometimes, but I don't think I overdid it. But I remember her asking me that. And so watch out on the Advil consumption. But I don't remember after that. I know that Jen ended up taking me to my house. I verified this with her, and she stayed with me. And my dogs were taken care of. And then the next night, one of our friends came and stayed with me to give Jen a break so she could go home. And then my sister and my dad just started driving from Texas to Idaho. Yeah. You know, that's the blessing and the beauty of this whole thing was the amount of support, and you realize what you've got. And then just thinking about it though, in hindsight, like you know, you never know. I mean, you always know. I mean, I know that I have a lot of love in my life, but when stuff goes down, like, and to see that response and recall it, like right now, like I think about how my family just jumped into action and all my friends, and it's pretty incredible. So, I'm gonna keep it together. So my dad and sister get to Idaho 2 days later, and they just took charge. And in between there, I had, I don't know how many friends that came over and brought me food and sat with me and made sure I was taken care of every minute. And I was on crazy pain pills. So I think that's too, like, why my memory is so off. But anyway, I just had a ton of people that jumped up and took charge of me, and it's been amazing, and it hasn't stopped. So I feel so lucky. But we made the decision after they got there, after talking to Huntsman's in Salt Lake, and then MD Anderson in Houston, and decided to go with treatment at MD Anderson in Houston because it is ranked as, the #1 cancer center in the country, and my family's in Texas, so it just made it logistically a lot easier. So anyway, I think in hindsight, and I got a colonoscopy in there at some point. I don't even remember when, but I had to get one in order for them to determine if the cancer originated in the colon or if it originated in the liver. They're almost certain that it did originate in the colon, but they had to determine that in order to decide where I would land for treatment. So that just brings me to the point that, as young as I may be in the cancer world, for this to be happening, I'm really not. Like, it's becoming so common that they actually have changed the recommendation for just your regular screening for colon cancer. And now, it used to be age 50, I think it's age 45 now. And so I think everyone's supposed to get a colonoscopy at age 45. And if I had done that, I'm 46 now, so if I had done that last year at 45, it would have already been too late. And I don't mean too late like there's no hope, but it wouldn't have been able to catch it early. So I don't know, what I would have done differently, other than I think I could have addressed some of these stomach issues, early on, to see, what was going on there. And then I could have jumped on the fact, that when I was severely anemic, like, ask more questions, like, what is that really about, and then, self-care, I will talk about that at length another time. But anyway, I guess my main message is, screening, listening to your body, and taking care of yourself, the way you eat, exercise. I feel like I was always a healthy, active person. I know I was, but I grew up in Texas. I grew up eating barbecue and Mexican food, and and it's great, but I think that can have long-term effects. So anyway, I think just all those lifestyle considerations are so important, and then listening to anything that could be going on in your body, and asking questions. So I will close here. I just want to share that. More to come on all the other things that I mentioned, but I just think it's important for people to know how I ended up where I'm at. And if you have questions or want any more information, I am more than happy to share. So with that, I'll close, and hope everyone's doing well. I will see you tomorrow.